I've included the C standard library for a number of different purposes. CC type for things like is space and to upper or to lower. And I can show you that right now what I'm using CC type for. If I come over here, here's CC type in the C++.com website. If you scroll down, if I scroll down, you'll see I can check to see if a character is an alphanumeric, is an alpha character, is blank, is a control character, is a digit, and so on. All these different things. I could also raise it to uppercase and to lowercase and to uppercase. And this tells you what all those is's would respond true for based on these different characters. Okay, so you can go take a look at that. Back over to here. And then IOStream, obviously, and the string library we need to create strings with. Here are my 4 strings that I'm creating: name, name copy, initials, and substring. The insertion and extraction operator are used all over the place. Actually, the extraction operator is not. I use getLine. Really, the only ones I use are the insertion operator. Okay, enter your first and last name. So I use getLine to get whatever they type in from the cin stream and dump it into name. Then I output a blank line. And now I do some checks. So I'm going to use the size function of string, and it'll tell me how many characters are in name. If there's less than 3 characters, it can't possibly be a first and last name, because you need at least 1 character for a space in between, and then 1 character each for the first and last name. So it has to be at least 3 characters. If it's not what I'm looking for, and it'll just exit out. Then I use, for the next one, find first of. So what I do is I'm searching for the space character inside of name. It'll start at the beginning and go through. Okay, I also could have went from the end. I'm only looking for a space to see if there is one. If there is one, then it will not equal not a position. So this will equal, let's say it was John Doe. Well, if it's John Doe, then it'll be J is 1, O, H, N is 4. The 5th character will be a space. So this will equal actually 4, because it's 0, 1, 2, 3 for John, and then 4 will be where the space is. So this would equal 4, and that is not what npos equals. Remember, npos for us will typically equal -1. So here's saying, hey, I didn't find a space. I need a space between your first and last names, and it'll exit out with an error. And then find last of, which again, I could have used find first of. I'm looking for any of these characters. So if somebody typed in a tilde, a exclamation point, any of these characters, okay, and even a double quote, I would have said, hey, I found one. So this would be, you know, let's say I typed in John Doe for some reason, right? Well, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, on the 4th character, it would have matched that double quote. So this whole thing would equal 4, and that's not equal to the npos, meaning I didn't find one, which means I've got one of these characters that I don't want, right? So I do not want any of these characters, and it'll display them all. And I'll exit out of the program. Next one, front. That's supposed to be front. Okay, front. Front tells you what the first character is. So name front. If it was John Doe, it would be a J. Now, if that thing is a space, I don't want names to begin with a space. So this would exit out again. So front gives you the first character. Is space from the CC type library gives you a true if it is a space, false if it's not a space. If it's true and it is a space, I don't want a space. Same thing with the last character. I don't want names to end with a space. So if the back of this name, its character, is a space, I'm going to get out as well. So now I've error checked everything to see if I got a good name. Now I do an assignment operation where I make name copy equal to name, and then I output some messages like, hey, I've just assigned this thing, and then I display the names. I do the same thing with size. I show you what the size is using the size function, which will tell you how many characters are inside of the string. So John Doe would be 8, because it's John is 4, space would be the 5th one, and then Doe is 3 more, is 8. Length would give you 8 as well, because length and size is the same thing. Size is just there for backwards compatibility to something else, which you don't have to worry about. We'll talk about that a little bit next year. And then capacity. Capacity is how many characters are allocated. Remember we talked about the minimum length of a string is 15 characters. So if I put John Doe into a string, its size is 8, but its capacity is still 15 at that point. So here I display that as well. I say, hey, the minimum number of characters is what? Well, here's a string, a blank string, that I get the capacity for, which will be 15. And then I could find out, hey, what's the maximum length of a string I can create? And we use the max size function for that. And for this system, it'll be 2 billion. I can make 2 billion, a string of 2 billion characters. And then I use an if to check to see if it's empty. So if the name is empty, I'll say then the string name is empty according to the empty function. Now, obviously, it's going to display the string John Doe or whatever it is not empty, because if it was empty, it would have exited right here, right? It would have been less than 3 and would have exited. Okay. The reserve function just says, okay, I'm going to give you a larger capacity. So when you say reserve 50, what it will do is give you the same size as 8, but give you the capacity of 50. And you should play around with, can you reserve less? Well, that doesn't make any sense, does it? Reserving less is not really reserving anything. It's shrinking. So reserve should not be able to go less. So if I reserve 50 and then I reserve 5, it's not going to work. Shrink to fit. Well, here I am. I just reserved 50, but my size is still 8. Saying shrink to fit will say, well, I've only got 8 characters. I'm going to shrink down as far as I can go. Well, as far as you can go is 15. That's the minimum size. So the capacity now will be back down to 50. Now I'll go and resize to 50. Now that's different. What resize will do will change the number of characters that you're storing. not how many you can store like the capacity, but how many you are storing. So when you say resize 50, you're saying I want 50 more characters. The default character is a space. You could actually change it. But for now, it'll give you 50 spaces. What we'll get is not exactly 50. Same thing with reserve. When we reserve or resize greater, it doesn't always go 50 like a perfect number. It'll usually go a little bit more. So this might be 55 or 54 or something like that. So the size will now be 50 and capacity will be 50. Or size will be 50 and capacity might be 54. And then shrink to fit again. Well, what's going to happen? Well, this is 50. The capacity will shrink down to 50. That's as far as it can go because that's how many characters you have stored in the string. So you'll see that you still have that same approximate length of the string. Oh, you'll still have the same length of the string. The capacity will be slightly smaller. And then I clear it. Clear clears it. Empty, check to see if it was empty. Clear actually clears out the string. So now the size will be 0, but the capacity will still be that 50. Clear doesn't resize it or reset it back down to 15. It simply says, I don't need these characters anymore, and gets rid of this string that you have stored in it. You still have allocated all that storage space. So, and you'll see that. And then when we go